Welcome to the Patriotic Pulpit. I started to record a session which I call The Democrats Cannot Think Properly, They Cannot Reason Properly, and I had a lot of good quotations from Democrats and the socialists of the world, the communists, who really can't think clearly, they can't reason, they can't put things together. Just Hakeem Jeffries, for example, saying that we have to oppose the bill that the Republicans have put into Congress because that is regarding illegal immigration and verifying that people who are coming to the ballot box are actually Americans. He said, "Well, we can't support such a bill because that's going to keep Americans from voting." You just have to think about those kind of things. Okay, to verify that they're Americans is going to keep Americans from voting. I had a lot of things like that, a lot of just interesting, good quotations lined up. But before I went to record that one, of course, we know the attempted assassination on Donald Trump. And so I want to talk about that. I want to look at not only just a couple of words about that, but also what the left is saying, what a lot of people are saying regarding that assassination attempt. And then I want to go back to some of the causes of it. I think this is really what the mainstream media, as well as many people on Fox News, are not really talking about. And that is what is really being taught in our schools or universities. What is this Marxism that is being taught everywhere, this cultural Marxism? And that is something that is instilling violence in our young people. This is what's being taught in the schools. This is what is being taught in the universities. We'll talk about that for a few moments. And then before we conclude, I want to talk about what we need to do to regain some perspective and regain some clarity on moral issues in America, going back to the concept that America is really a Christian nation. So, first of all, regarding Donald Trump's survival of the attempted assassination, I'm thankful to God. It's something that brings tears to my eyes. It's something that was emotionally moving to me and many people that I know, not simply because I support Donald Trump, but because it's so stunning to see how wicked America has become, regardless of your party affiliation. Trump gave thanks to God for protecting his life, and I think God protected him from the assassin's bullet. On Truth Social, here's what he wrote. He thanked everyone for your thoughts and prayers, and it was God alone who prevented the unthinkable from happening. At the same time, tragically, a former fire chief attending the rally with his family was killed. Corey Compertori, 50 years old, protecting his children, killed, and then other people were critically wounded as well. So this is something, a great American tragedy. One of Trump's posts on Truth Social included this comment. He said, I knew immediately that something was wrong when I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin, and then much bleeding took place. President Trump told former White House physician Ronnie Jackson that at a very last millisecond head tilt, and you can see that on the film, saved his life after a gunman opened fire on him. He told Jackson that he turned his head to the right to look at a chart on illegal immigration and the statistics on illegal immigration when a bullet grazed his ear. That chart that I was going to go over, he said, saved my life. He told Jackson on the phone just hours after the attempted assassination. The Border Patrol saved my life. If I hadn't pointed at that chart, hadn't turned my head to look at it, that bullet would have hit me right in the head. However, so the whole country in shock. And one thing that I would like to point out, and I heard Jeanine Pirro say it, this is a perfect illustration. You didn't see the right going down and burning the buildings down and burning police stations down, going to the Secret Service offices and burning those stations down and demanding answers in that fashion. No, not at all. You see, that's what the left does. And they did it when a thug, George Floyd, was killed tragically on the street by a cop. But nevertheless, the whole country started burning down. But here we have a former president, one who's running for president, almost killed, and yet you don't see anybody on the right acting that way at all. None whatsoever. You see, there's a huge difference in the right and left in this country. But before we go on too much further with that, let me just notice some things regarding what the Democrats have said, some of the leading Democrats since that has taken place. Now, Biden has spoken. He spoke immediately after it, as everybody knows, And he said, we need to lower the temperature, stand together, no place in America for violence. Politics should not be a killing field. But he did talk about, just the day before, targeting Trump. But today, in an interview, he doubled down. Actually, this was yesterday, because right now, while I'm recording, he's speaking to the NAACP, and he looks like an angry old dog that's just too old to bite, but he's just getting so angry, and he just, once again, doubling down on Trump is a threat to democracy. He never explains it, never explains, what do you mean by he's a threat to democracy? No one on the left ever explains how Trump is a threat to democracy. They just continue to chant it and rechant it and yell it, and pretty soon everybody just, oh, he's a threat to democracy. They don't even know what democracy is, apparently. It is Joe Biden who wants to put us into world government and has tried to do that. That's what I consider to be a threat to democracy. But, at any rate, they just continue to double down. Kamala Harris says, well, violence has no place in America, she said on a tweet or on X. But it's interesting that she bailed out the BLM rioters who were burning down police stations, and she invited others to do the same. She wants this. This is what they have pushed for. This is what they've trained for. Now, I'll come back to that in a few moments, because I want to talk about Marxism, what Marxism is all about in this country. Because this is one of the stones that is left unturned right now. But first of all, I want to notice it's interesting that the left continues to want to blame the political speech in this country of the political leaders and blaming Trump. It's interesting. The left never owns anything that they do. The left never owns it. When Steve Scalise was shot on the ball field in Washington, D.C., you didn't hear, no one on the left decried it. No one on the left, no, they didn't own that at all, saying, you know what, we heated up the temperature here. No, they never did that. All they can do is come and say, well, everybody needs to lower their tone in politics. Everybody needs to do it. So when the left absolutely creates havoc and mass chaos and violence and bloodletting on the streets, they say, well, everybody needs to, because all of us are participating. No, not all of us are participating that way. The right is not doing that. I don't know anybody on the right doing that. The right is not doing that. And we can see that what happened with Donald Trump. The right is not burning down the police stations. No, the right doesn't protect, but that's what they do. Well, everybody needs to tone it down, like we're all guilty about it. No, we're not all guilty about that. The left has continued to demonize Trump over and over again publicly, in every public forum you can think about. They've demonized him. They portrayed him as Hitler, and they continue to do that not only there, but also in the college classrooms. And we'll talk about that in just a few moments. But that's how they do it. Everybody needs to tone it down. So Jen Psaki said, well, I hope, this was before the Republican convention began. She said, well, I hope the RNC will tone down the rhetoric when they get up there. What is that? That's to blame Trump's All right, I started off to say, I have a show that I was putting together about the left, the inability of the left to think clearly, to put two and two together, to reason to a rational conclusion. They cannot do that. And here's Jen Psaki illustrating that front and center for me. For example, she said, well, I hope the right will tone down the rhetoric. All right, let's stop for a moment and think about that. Mainstream media says the same thing. Trump needs to tone down the rhetoric. I see this on X, some of the people on the left. Well, Trump needs to tone down the rhetoric. All right, here's the argumentation. Here's what they're saying. That Trump's rhetoric is that which is at fault. He's the cause of this, because he is so vile and violent in his rhetoric that the left is now going to kill him, because we want to shut that up, because we are peaceable people on the left and we want to shut up the right who is violent. So we're going to shoot him with a gun, and we want to put him out of business, because we are peaceable on the left and the right, they're the ones that are causing it. Now, that's what they're saying. That is absolutely ludicrous. It is stupid. It is not sensible at all. They cannot, and it shows you, Jen Psaki being a perfect illustration, they don't own anything. They don't own it. Kamala Harris doesn't own it. She said, well, we all need to be peaceable in our language, but she'll go and bail people out that are burning the streets down. I think these are such stupid statements. One man on X, he said this one, I thought, he said, you know what? Republicans deserve it because they want open carry. And they want open carry in Pennsylvania where the event occurred. Now, isn't that stupid? I don't know what other to say. I don't usually go around saying that, but I think, as if to say, okay, since they have open carry in Pennsylvania, therefore, when the police saw a young man with a rifle climbing on the roof, well, that's fine because we have open carry here, and that's what's causing this, and so everybody can open carry and climb on the roof with the rifle. I tell you, people, I wondered always what this Trump derangement syndrome was about. I guess this is what it is. It's just like they're out of their minds. They cannot think clearly about anything, apparently, and they certainly don't own anything that they are responsible for doing. But what's the real problem here? It's not just what the politicians are saying. It's what the left has encouraged and allowed continually. You just go back through the mainstream media, just think about, for example, Snoop Dogg putting out the video of Trump being assassinated. I absolutely was stunned that he would be able to do that and put that out. If that's encouragement to it, I don't understand why he was not arrested for that, because that's encouraging someone to take violence. He ought to be taken off the air. That's the kind of thing that ought to be censored out of here, encouraging an assassination. Snoop Dogg did that several years ago. How about Katie Griffin holding up a severed head of Donald Trump? Why didn't they just take her, delete her accounts, punish her, take her to the FBI, say, you know what's this all about? Who are you encouraging to commit assassination? And how about the Hamilton play? You see, the Hamilton play portrayed Trump as being assassinated is absolutely vile and filthy and violent, that the left has continued to churn this and mix this up and throw this out into the culture. The truth is, Marxism teaches violence, and the left is Marxist. That's what they are. They are that in the college classrooms. They are that in the graduate school classrooms. They're that in the public school classrooms. Marxism is being taught. Critical race theory, that's Marxism. This was interesting. I'm just going to take an aside here for a moment. This is Marx's manifesto. And I had an acquaintance who went to Midwestern State University, and at one point he was real conservative and Ron Paul supporter and all that kind of thing. And then he came out and he was ardent communist socialist, and he defends Karl Marx. He said, well, Karl Marx's manifesto is only just a blueprint. It wasn't asking for violence. It's just an idea about how to change society. And I thought, what? Did you go to college to get that? Here, this is what Marx has the end of his manifesto to say, just the last couple of pages. And this is a lot more to it than this, but here's what Marx says. In short, communists everywhere support every revolutionary movement against the existing social and political order of things. A revolutionary movement, that's what it's about. It's not about understanding the world. It's about changing the world through violence. That's what Karl Marx is all about. How about the last page of it? He says these communists openly declare that their ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Let the ruling classes tremble at the communist revolution. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their change. They have a world to win. Working men of all countries unite. Did you get that? He said basically just pointing out overthrow all existing social conditions, tremble at the communist revolution. This is Karl Marx. You know what? The same thing with Rules for Radicals. Saul Alinsky has the same thing, and Hillary Clinton she loved this one. She did a paper on it in Wellesley College. But he talks continually about violence in the preface to the book, about the violence that he wanted to change the culture of America and change America with violence and revolution. That's what this is all about. The whole book is about that. Whether you're talking about Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, Karl Marx. So here's the point. Marxism is being taught in our universities for our young crowds. That's why we're seeing the violence when they get together and these different movements they have on the streets, this is what they're being taught in the schools. It's not simply what the politicians are saying from their lectern, it's what their teachers are teaching them in the classroom. And Marxism is also being, critical race theory, that's what this is being taught in the classrooms all across America. And I am tired of people ignoring the real issue here, and that is we've got to change the educational system in America, or at least get out of the one that we have and go to private education. Christopher Rufo has a great book called Cultural Marxism. I just finished it the other day, just one of the best books, and I've read many, many books on communism by the communists themselves, but his overview of cultural Marxism is absolutely one of the best reads that you can get. Cultural Marxism by Christopher Rufo. And he basically focuses upon 4 individuals that have changed the culture of America through the classroom. They include Herbert Marcuse, Angela Davis, Paulo Freire, and Derek Bell. Now just take Angela Davis, for example. Angela Davis, part of the Black Panther movement in the 60s. She was involved in shooting incidents, violence. She has preached violence all of her life. She's part of the BLM movement. Black Lives Matter, she's part of it. This is what Kamala Harris is part of. And they teach and have preached violence for over 40 years. Why are we ignoring that? That's what's going on in America. They're teaching violence, bloodletting, destruction. How about Paulo Freire? Started off in South America, different cities, openly taught violence and a violent overthrow of the existing social conditions. Where did he get his ideas? It's Karl Marx. That's where they're getting their ideas. Saul Alinsky says basically there's no such thing as right and wrong. So if there's no such thing as right and wrong, then what is wrong, of course, with violent revolution? There's nothing wrong with it. That's what he calls for. He calls for violence in his book, and that's the one that the Barack Obamas of the world has taken as their blueprint. How about Derek Bell? Derek Bell confessed openly that he was not really qualified to go to Harvard University, but they had to have a black man in there, so they've got him in there. And he endorsed violence from the beginning to the end. Violence, violence, violence. This is all Marxist, neo-Marxism. So what we see on the streets is what they're being taught in the collegiate classroom. So the political left, this is what we're seeing. This is kind of bubbling over into some of their candidates and some of their people in political office. One of the prominent Democrats is Jacqueline Marsall, who posted this after the shooting of Donald Trump. She says, "I don't condone violence, but please get some shooting lessons so you don't miss next time." Now, they removed her as a staffer. She was a staffer for Representative Benny Thompson, a Democrat from Mississippi. You know, they all have a D by their name. They're all Democrats. She was fired for that comment, but you know, this is the kind of people they have working for them. Here's another one. Democrat Jess Brannis wrote, "A for effort" to the young man. She was a district director for the Pennsylvania State Representative Heather Boyd. She fired that wicked woman, but she remains a councilwoman in Upper Darby. She still takes a place in city government. And yet, a Democrat pushing for violence. Where do they get it? Well, we've talked about it. How about Colorado State Representative Stephen Woodrow? Deleted his account after writing this. He said the last thing America needed was sympathy for the devil, but here we are, speaking about Donald Trump. You know, America is a seething, boiling pot of wickedness and violence, and it is being taught to our children in the collegiate classroom. We have Marxist professors, and Marx was about violence first, foremost, and last. I'm happy for anyone to challenge me on that. We'll just discuss that all day long. But that's what's being taught in the classroom. That's why we have young guys, such as the 20 or 21-year-old who tried to take out Donald Trump's life. Well, what's the solution? The solution is we better go back to our roots of America. You know, Joe Biden talks about going back to democracy. Our founding fathers, interestingly, warned us against democracy. They said, you don't want a democracy. A democracy is the next thing next to totalitarian government. The next thing, first of all, chaos, and then totalitarian government. The next thing to chaotic country is democracy. They said, no, we want a republic. But America was founded as not simply a republic, it was founded as a Christian nation. Now that is anathema to so many people. I heard a local school board or local school administration official in this area just recently say, or at least for an eyewitness, an ear witness, say that the Christians are so ignorant because America was never a Christian nation. We never had a Christianity as the founding of a country. You know what? They don't know anything about the founding of our country. If they would go back, I challenge them to go back. Don't read what the Marxist professors, such as the Herbert Marcuse, writes about the founding. Read what the founders themselves said. And you won't get very far until you run across such statements as, this was and is a Christian nation. John Jay, one of the Chief Justices of the Supreme Court, author of the Federalist Papers, he said this is a Christian nation. And he said it's not to be understood. Now here, the left needs to get this. It's not to be understood in the sense that an official church has been established or that a theocracy is in place, but rather that the principles upon which a republic rests are Christian in origin. You know, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, started by atheists. They don't know what they're talking about. They say, no, it never was a Christian nation. If you think you want a Christian nation, you want a theocracy. Our founding fathers who said that wanted a theocracy. No, John Jay says, you don't understand a thing. Freedom from Religion Foundation. We want and have a Christian nation because our Constitution is based upon Christian principles. Benjamin Morris, a second-generation American, surveying the mass of material on this topic, summarized this. Listen to him. Christianity is the principle, the all-pervading element, the deepest, most solid foundation of all of our civil institutions. It is the religion of the people, the national religion. But we neither have an established church nor an established religion. Interesting, isn't it? You see, because people today can't think clearly enough, to get back to one of my main themes, clearly enough to understand and to differentiate between a national religion and an established church or an established religion. What's the difference? An established religion is that which is supported by tax monies supported by the government. National religion, which he said we have, is that which is universally accepted and approbated in our country and practiced. And the principles therein are embedded in our Constitution. That's the difference. Some of the founders referred to this, as I mentioned, as a Christian republic. And they demonstrated that by the fact they adorned public buildings with biblical symbols. Moses crossing the Red Sea, or Moses holding tablets of stone carved on the building of the Supreme Court, even state papers of the Continental Congress filled with Christianity. One of the formative laws of the United States is the Declaration of Independence. And today, you don't hear much of the Declaration of Independence, that our rights are given to us by God, and the role of the government is simply to protect our rights. And that's why the founders gave the federal government a limited role. It does not include Obamacare. It does not include health care in any way. It includes only 20 basic principles, basic ideas, or basic concepts, or basic practices that the federal government may do, and after that, it's up to the states to do it. That's exactly what our Constitution is all about. Roger Sherman, from Connecticut, one of the most influential of the founders, signed not only the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, the Constitution. He wrote to Samuel Baldwin in 1790, he said, "My faith in this new republic is largely because," he said, "it was founded upon Christianity as he understood it." I wonder why our school administrators and our government officials, why they cannot go back and understand these simple principles, and why the Freedom From Foundation project, Freedom From Foundation cannot seem to grasp the very simple concepts that are here put forward. Why is that they can't do that? How about Joseph Story? Joseph Story, he was a jurist on the Supreme Court during the founding era. He wrote the first lengthy commentaries on the Constitution of the United States. He commented as follows: probably at the time of the adoption of the Constitution and of the amendment to it now under consideration, the general, if not the universal sentiment was that Christianity ought to receive encouragement from the state, so far as not incompatible with the private rights of conscience and the freedom of religious worship. That is, we're going to encourage Christianity being taught in the schools. They did, but we're not going to force anybody to go to church. We're not going to force anybody to pay into the coffers to pay a preacher such as myself in a pulpit. He goes on to say this: an attempt to level all religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, to make it a matter of state policy to hold all in utter indifference, would have created universal disapprobation, if not universal indignation. How do you like that? Supreme Court, a number of times referred to this as a Christian nation. The case most notable is in 1892, the Church of the Holy Trinity versus the United States. They said, this is a religious people. This is a Christian nation. What do we need to do? We need to go back. We need to go back to our roots and the concepts that we were founded upon, Christianity, the principles of it. And those principles are basically summed up by our Lord himself in the book of Matthew, where he says, first and foremost commandment is to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. The second is this, to love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two laws hang all the law and the prophets. If America doesn't get back there, we are hopelessly lost.